Hey, welcome back for some more X-Files. Today we're checking out Unrequited episode 16 of season 4. Unrequited debuted February 23rd, 1997 and places Mulder and Scully on the track of a Vietnam vet who seems to be able to disappear in the blink of an eye. The episode begins at the US Capitol Mall near the Vietnam War Memorial. Major General Benjamin Block is giving a rousing speech to war veterans, but there's something fishy going down because the FBI is here in full force. Scully spots there are guys, so it should be smooth sailing now. Scully never misses.
Scully!
I lost him.
Oh, way to make me look like a jackass. Their mystery guy is somehow able to just vanish right in front of them. 12 hours earlier, because that was actually the end of the episode, I really wish they would have given a spoiler warning. Some fancy pants military official is being carted around when he finds a playing card in his limo. Now what Batman villain leaves behind playing cards? I know what you're thinking. Clayface. Or it's this guy who just magically appeared in the limo. I feel like I've seen him somewhere before. Hey, what do you think he wants to do with that gun? This guy is definitely going to lose his job. With the Lieutenant General dead, the case has now fallen into the laps of the FBI. The driver is being held as the possible murderer, and the card left is called a death card, something I think Skinner is very familiar with. Mulder and Scully come in and Mulder blurts out that he thinks the driver might actually be innocent, but Skinner basically blows him off and continues on with what he was saying.
Right now I'm flying by the seat of my pants.
You mean there's no procedure outlined for an invisible assassin?
Mulder's just asking for a smack. The agents head to Virginia to speak to a man named Denny Markham, a leader of a paramilitary group that Skinner suspects could be responsible for the murder. The driver was on their mailing list.
Who is it?
Agents Mulder and Scully with the FBI.
What do you want?
It's extremely urgent that we...
Well, that was terrifying. The agents are allowed into Markham's compound and oh my god, look at all the puppies! Don't run, they're trying to bring you love. Also, how did the gate they walked through go from slightly open to all the way open back to slightly open? Denny tries to refuse cooperating with the agents, but he's kinda sorta surrounded, so yeah. He sure recognizes that card and knows more people are going to die because of it. Is that a rocket launcher? There's being paranoid, then there's this. Denny gives the agents a picture of the man that he believes is doing all the killing. One Nathaniel Teeger. He was left to die as a POW in Vietnam and has seemingly come back to exact revenge. Do you think he has spooky sleep powers too? Denny and his men freed Teeger from his POW camp, and when the government tried to get involved, well, he just completely vanished. At the Vietnam War Memorial, Teeger finds a widow to tell her that her husband is still alive and is being held as a prisoner of war. He then hands the grieving woman her husband's dog tags, but I think telling her that her husband is still alive is probably worse than if she just thought he was dead.
No, because I just got off the phone with the Army Forensics Lab where Sergeant Nathaniel Teeger's remains have been stored since they were recovered from the crash site.
Alright, so the woman saw a dead man? What if Teeger's a ghost? That would explain how he's able to appear and then disappear at will. Why does Teeger look like Mr. Burns when he tried to fly the Spruce Moose?
We'll take the Spruce Moose! Hop in! But sir, I said hop in.
The agents speak with the widow because they have to traumatize the poor woman even further. And then her eyes just suddenly begin to bleed. And because it begins to bleed, Mulder now wants her to have an eye exam because there's a connection to Teeger, somehow. Mulder arrives at the Army Identification Lab and all they have for him are a few of Teeger's teeth. How can they say he's dead when that's all they found? Mulder calls the general who signed off on Teeger's death certificate because Mulder thinks he's the next one to be targeted.
Good, I'm gonna put 2 FBI agents there to escort you just as a precaution. They have my mobile phone number, okay?
Hey, pay attention to the woman speaking, mister. Guys, Teeger is right there. The agents assigned to the general find nothing in his room, so it must be safe. Except how did they miss the death card? Scully calls up Mulder to inform him the woman has some kind of a floating blind spot. Mulder asks if this could be how Teeger vanishes, and Scully apparently asked the eye doctor the same thing, and he just laughed at her, which is super professional.
I found something on my desk. Something very troubling.
It makes total sense the general would call Mulder and not the agents that are right outside his room.
Who put this here?
Listen to me very carefully, okay? I'm on my way over there. General Stefan?
Mulder enters the room and Teager is right there, but he's lucky he has spooky blind spot powers. Scully doesn't exactly believe what Mulder says. I mean, how could the general not have seen the man that was about to shoot him? Skinner comes in the room because the agents are in big trouble for some reason. I always love the head bob he does when he really wants it known that he's serious.
I need both of you out here to see something. Now.
Teager might be able to hide from people, but he sure as hell can't hide from a security camera. Mulder thinks maybe Teager learned something from his captors while he was a POW. I feel bad for Skinner, because how do you explain this to your superiors? General Block meets with Denny because he's now shitting bricks, thinking that he could be the next victim.
You know what he wants, and we both know you can't give it to him.
This guy's got a sweet mustache. Even with Teager on the loose killing generals, there's no stopping the parade for the vets, so they need to get their asses in gear. Meanwhile, Mulder meets with his side piece Marita. She tells him the generals are all being targeted by their own government after failing to negotiate for the POWs. Teager was basically set free to take these men out, and the FBI was put in place to make it look like they were protecting the men when those higher up knew they couldn't. It's basically the US government trying to protect their own ass.
Shooter! Get down!
There might be a shooter, but I'm not sure pulling your gun on regular people was the right move, Scully. A little while later, Mulder asks Scully if she saw Teager, but she's unwilling to admit what she saw. Even when she sees something with her own eyes, she can't bring herself to believe it. Mulder tells Skinner that they were given this case because they were never meant to succeed. Whoever handed Skinner the case knew he would bring Mulder and Scully aboard, so it would make them look bad, and Teager would end up killing the generals, hiding their mishaps with the POWs. Two birds with one stone.
It's your job to protect me still, isn't it?
That's what we're trying to do.
Then do your job.
Teager is out amongst the crowd of vets when he's spotted by one of his friends. He's pretty surprised to see Teager, given that they were told he was dead, but Teager hands him a paper of all the men the government claimed were dead, but are still very much alive and currently still prisoners. General Block is obviously in big trouble, but why not stop the event altogether? How do you stop a gunman when he's surrounded by innocent people? We're back at the beginning of the episode as Teager gives the agents the slip. Mulder warns Skinner and the general not to get in the car because Teager's inside waiting for him.
He's in the car. Teager's in the car.
Get out! Down!
He might be able to go invisible, but he's a terrible shot. Teager attempts to drive off in the car, but is shot and killed by a random agent, not even one of the main characters. But if Teager can disappear into people's blind spots, why try and drive off at all?
Teager, Nathaniel J.
Even though Teager said his own name over and over, the Pentagon claims his name was Thomas Lynch, a man that was in and out of psychiatric centers and just happened to be on Denny's mailing list. Now this couldn't be a government cover-up, could it? Mulder wants to push the investigation further, but Skinner informs him it's been turned over to another organization, so they no longer have jurisdiction. This was obviously done because they can't have Mulder go around exposing their little lies now, can they? Unrequited is a decent episode. It won't make any best of lists, but I think the story is fairly solid. It does sort of harken back to Sleepless a bit with the Vietnam vet angle, but instead of men being experimented on who no longer need sleep, you have a man who was a prisoner of war, left to die by a country he sought to defend, but who came back for revenge after learning a special little trick from the very people who had imprisoned him. The episode overall feels like safe X-Files. It's not trying to change anything or do anything different. It's fairly by the numbers. It's also interesting that Scully's cancer isn't mentioned or addressed in the slightest. The previous episode, Caddish, made no mention of her cancer either, but that episode was also set to air prior to Leonard Betts, before the whole shakeup occurred. But I guess they don't need to mention her cancer. She is trying to live life normally, and you could just take this episode as that's exactly what Scully and her co-workers are doing. Just going along, doing their day-to-day as if everything is normal. I don't exactly blame Teager for doing what he did, but unbeknownst to him, even with his little revenge, he was still being used by the government. Unrequited was written largely in part by Howard Gordon. In 1996, a report on 60 Minutes spoke of CIA agents that had been captured but were declared dead back in the 60s and 70s during the Vietnam War. This idea stuck with Gordon and would become the basis for the episode. Gordon brought his idea before Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz, and upon hearing what he wanted to do, he was given the green light. Gordon, however, was dealing with a case of writer's block, and the script just wasn't coming together. So just before the Christmas break, Gordon went to Chris Carter and got some help. He got so much help that the script was largely written by both men. So because of this, Chris Carter was also given a writing credit. With this being just before the Christmas break, and knowing the crew was also trying to write Leonard Betts after Darren Morgan failed to turn in a script, this meant within the span of maybe a couple of weeks, Leonard Betts, Unrequited, and the X-Files movie were all written, which is a ton of work in just a short span of time. Another idea Gordon had been kicking around in his head was the theme of invisibility, not just physically, but metaphorically. The show always liked to focus on disenfranchised people, people who are often forgotten by the system, and who is more forgotten than war vets? Gordon decided that the character would be a Vietnam vet as they were slowly starting to age out and in a short time would eventually be forgotten. He also wanted his character to be able to physically go invisible. So for this, he went to his brother, who was an ophthalmologist. His brother told him that we all have blind spots, areas within our retinas that don't normally pick images up, but really don't affect us because our brain is able to compensate for the missing pieces. He took this and played with it, creating the blind spot manipulation that Teager uses throughout the episode. Another thing Gordon wanted to do was include Skinner, because he generally doesn't have much to do outside of chewing Mulder out in his office. This time, he was able to get him out onto the field, actively participating, even if he really doesn't do much. This episode seems to feature a lot of B-roll or repeating shots. It almost feels like they didn't write the episode long enough or ran out of material at the end, because there's a lot of people just waving flags and parade shots. The fact they used 3 minutes of the finale right in the beginning of the episode leads me to believe this is the case. In fact, if you ask me, I'd say the original opening to the episode was supposed to be the first general being killed off and not what they ended up using. The names on the fake war memorial are actually made up. For legal reasons, they couldn't use the real names from the actual memorial, so instead the art director asked her sister, who ran a typing service, to make up 2,000 fake names. She used some X-Files producers and staff members, but for the most part just made them all up. During the scene with the widow, you can see a couple names that say Jesse R. Ellison and Harlan L. Hahn. This is a reference to legendary author Harlan Ellison, a man who has something of a short fuse and who is a big fan of the show. The crowd during the rededication scene at the end used roughly 150 extras, with 50 of them being people who won a contest through their local radio station to appear on the X-Files in a walk-on role. The contest winners were shot sitting waving their flags, then standing in 3 separate locations and from different angles. When it was all put together, it gave the illusion that they were actually at the War Memorial and not just a random pier in Vancouver. Peter LaCroix, who played Teager, had appeared in 2 X-Files episodes prior to this one. First in EBE as the truck driver, then in Ascension as the tram operator. I guess they figured with his shorter hair and beard, no one would notice, but I sure as hell did. Larry Musser, who played Denny, has also appeared in several other X-Files episodes. First in Die Hand die Verletzt as the sheriff, and then again in the season 3 episode Jose Chung's From Outer Space as Detective Manners.
Yeah, that's a bleeping dead alien body if I ever bleeping saw one.
Scott Hylands played General Benjamin Block. He's a Canadian actor, likely best known for his role as Kevin O'Brien on the television series Night Heat, a police drama that ran from 1985 through 1989 and featured a very young Keanu Reeves in one episode as a mugger, where he gets blown away after assaulting a woman.
Oh, he's got a gun!
Unrequited is a decent episode. It's one I'll watch if it randomly pops up. It currently sits at 7.2 on IMDb, but I'm somewhere in the 6 or 7 range. Up next is a very good episode, as the crash of a commercial airliner has Mulder investigating a nearby lake, and the return of Mulder's friend Max Fennig, and the episode Tempest Fugit. So what do you think of Unrequited? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today, folks. I hope you're happy and healthy and stay spooky.
Sunday, the FBI must stop an assassin.
This man is killing at will.
That's correct, sir.
Who appears in an instant.
Shooter, get down!
Where is he?
He was there.
And vanishes into thin air.
Pick him up, Mulder. He's right in front of you.
I can't see him. I can't see him.
An all-new to X-Files, Sunday at 9, 8 Central on Fox.